When an opponent intentionally tries to mislead you, watch out. It's an act. You probably want to do the opposite of what he or she wants you to do. Shrugs and sad voices are acts that indicate a good hand. Whenever a player shrugs, sighs, and says, "I bet,"
I bet.
you need a big hand to call. If he truly had a weak hand, would he go out of his way to let you know? Of course not. He's acting. A misdirected bet is an act. If the action is three-way or more, your opponent will be most concerned about the most threatening player. But what if an opponent instead stares down another player who doesn't seem to be a big threat? And what if the opponent then aims his bet toward that player? That's a misdirected bet, and it usually means the player's trying to convince you that he isn't worried about your hand. Reaching for chips before someone bets is often an act. Weak or beginning players can sometimes do that, but more experienced players don't. If you're thinking about betting a borderline hand, see if your opponent reaches for chips. There's a good chance this is an act designed to prevent your bet. When someone puts extra emphasis on a betting motion, it's an act. It's hard to spot, and you have to train yourself to see it. Watch the tail end of a bet. If the betting is smooth, but there's a flick of the fingers, that's extra emphasis, and it usually means the opponent is bluffing or is uncomfortable about the strength of his hand. When you see this, call more often than usual. If a player is intentionally looking away from you, watch out. That's a tell. That is, a telltale sign that your opponent is bluffing. Or not. Only two possibilities exist here. The player really isn't interested, or is trying to make you feel comfortable enough to bet. Don't be fooled. Unless you have a very strong hand, check and fold after the opponent bets. And never bluff into a player who's looking away from you. An opponent who stares at you when it's your turn is probably acting. This is usually a dare. The opponent may call, but will almost never raise.